Hi, it's Dr. Parikh going over the syllabus for Psychology of Women online. Oh, that's my last video done processing. That's fun. So the syllabus is going to have the most updated information. I link to it as a Google Docs. You see it loads. That means if something seems unclear or I need to adjust something, I can do it right here. And I think you can also comment on it. Oh, it's showing me that I'm in more than one place. So up top is just kind of my information. Including my office hours, I may change those because I'm realizing that a lot of people have obligations after 2:30. So usually that's a good time to meet with people, but this semester I'm having a lot of struggles, so I may shift a little bit and I'll update them there if I do. So our course description, we discuss the psychological effects of global patriarchy on the lives of women. Topics include gender stereotypes, sexuality, body image, mental health, and violence against women. And those get focused more specifically in our course goals and objective. So each week I've built things to really reflect specific goals and objectives. And it kind of, if you read through the objectives, it goes pretty linearly through the semester. Some themes are there pretty constantly. For example, describe gender similarities and differences. That's going to be there quite a bit. How being gendered affects our lives. That's kind of our shtick here. That's what we're doing. Then there's also pieces about how there are other influences. This is really getting at intersectionalism. So there are pieces that kind of come up and then go back, but run through the course. There's no prereqs for this course. I do always keep in mind the overarching goals of our psychology department, or School of Psychology and Counseling, which are, first of all, just getting the major concepts of a topic area. But second, understanding how research functions. So how do we do research? How do we write about research? And then also the last is critical thinking skills. How do we challenge assumptions? How do we know the things that we think we know? And I think that goal 1 and goal 3 are where a lot of our efforts go for this class. It's a 200 level class. We don't need to have the big paper, but we still will think some about research thinking. We're going to read some articles that are research studies. But I think 1 and 3 is really more of my emphasis here. Course requirements, be in Blackboard a lot. Make sure that you keep access. If you get locked out, get help quickly. Know that you may need to use Mozilla Firefox. It just depends. I have it on my home computer because Chrome acts up, but on my work computer, Chrome works just fine. They're both Macs. I don't know what the difference is. It's really up to you to, I can't cover technical difficulties on my end. There's some basics that help a lot. Make sure that you're uploading actual files, so Microsoft Word documents, PDFs, because if you just include like a Google Doc link or a Keynote file, those don't play nice in Blackboard. Sometimes there's something where you need to do a picture. Make sure it's a picture file that will load nicely into Blackboard. You can always convert to a PDF if you're not sure. And I'll try to show later, when you do attach a photo for something, try to attach it within the text box instead of as a file at the end, because that way people see it as part of the text box. Always look to make sure it actually loaded, and it's really up to you, because the class moves very quickly. There are several assignments. A lot of them are in the discussions, but there's still a lot happening. And so I really have to leave it up to students to get those things in. Anytime you get an assignment back, check for little bubbles giving you feedback. Because even if you get full points on something, I might be sharing thoughts that you may find interesting, but I also might be giving you feedback that helps you do better on a later assignment. So we're 7 1-week units. Early on in the week, you'll spend a lot of time reading and watching videos. Later in the week, you'll be doing a lot more discussion. We will, part of the first week is we as a group, really you as a group, will kind of settle, how do you want these discussion boards to go? What do you think the ground rules should be? This is a class where you can, almost all of us are going to have very personal experiences and reactions related to the content. And so it's important to think about how much you want to share personally and maybe even create norms around how do you handle when people have different opinions, how much is appropriate to share, things like that. And again, I try to really let the discussion board be your space because I already get to shape so much of the course and I want to let you have a voice. So I will jump in here and there, but for the most part, I'll read and I'll try to stay in the background and let you work through things. If there's something that's really, really clearly inaccurate, I might jump in and try to help. But if it's a smaller issue, I may just let it go. Because, again, I want that to be a space for you to sort of figure things out. Late policy in a class like this, it's just really tough when we're moving so fast to have things get turned in late. Most assignments are worth just a small part of your overall grade, so I'm going to say no late work is accepted. But again, I try to make enough flexibility that you can miss one or two things and still be okay. Also, the discussion boards, I typically give extra credit, so I require a certain number of posts and responses. And if you do extra responses, or if you really dig in and do very meaningful and deep responses, I typically give some bonus points. Email, I am on my email quite a bit. I check it and try to be fast. I also work to not be on 24/7. So with online class, I tend to be a little more I work to be a little more available because things do move very quickly. But I try to let my sort of late afternoon and evening be family time and weekends to be family time and also just getting a break because part of the college experience is that you kind of feel like you're on 24/7 and you can do that for a few years and get by, but you reach a point where that just doesn't feel good. It's not sustainable anymore. And I have reached that point. So this is my job. This is not a temporary gig. This is what I'm doing. With email, I say all that to preface that don't expect an immediate response, especially evenings and weekends. On the other hand, I won't purposely make you wait it out. So especially if it's a short email, if it's a quick yes or no sort of answer, and I can do it easily on my phone, I will often, you may get responses within minutes from me. You can email me anytime, day or night. I don't care. I don't have alerts on my phone in the middle of the night that an email has come in. I just care about how quickly you expect a turnaround from me. And you can also, if it's something really urgent, you can call my office and see if I'm in. Make sure you tell me who you are, what course you're in, things like that. I've got a lot of students. I'll know your mind, but I won't know what you're from. Emails that just say, like, I don't know what to do on this assignment. I don't really know how to help because I've made written descriptions, I've made videos, I've done everything I can to explain it already. So if you email me and say I'm lost, I'm going to say, okay, come into office hours. If you email me and say, you describe it this way, is this what you want? And then describe what you think I want you to do. There I can say either, yes, you've described it correctly, or actually, no, I want you to do this other thing. Or if you ask a really specific question, do I need citations for this? Things like that. So the more specific you are in an email, the more likely you are to get a helpful response. And if you feel lost, come meet with me. If my office hours don't work for you, send me an email. Sometimes I'm available in the mornings. Sometimes we can do a phone call in the evenings after my kid's in bed. Office hours, I really like talking with students. Come before you feel like you're completely drowning. So if you feel like you're falling behind, you're not understanding how an assignment is going, come and get help. Counseling resources, there's free services available through our wellness center. There's also crisis services that you can access. I don't think either, I really should add a text line, but there you can Google and find sort of crisis lines where you can text also. And just as a friendly little warning, this class often brings up a lot of very personal feelings. The content, part of our readings will talk about the feminist phrase, the personal is political, which is the idea that if you say women's issues aren't political because it's about personal things that happen in the home, then you systematically deny women political rights because women were traditionally really sequestered in the home. So the personal is political, and I think that's very true with this course. So be aware that even if you're usually pretty healthy, or you've had trouble but you're feeling really stable right now, this course might bring up some difficulties. So it might be a great time to go seek counseling for the first time. It might be a time where you might notice symptoms come up that you haven't experienced in a while. So you can either use whatever coping skills have been helpful in the past or look into getting services again. I think counseling is a great thing for everyone to experience at least once. Even if they're really healthy, counseling can have growth experiences. So just be aware that particularly we have topics related to, there's a week in particular where we talk about violence against women. That one's rough. There's a lot of things that are difficult here. You may notice barriers that you've never noticed before. You may notice that you have been part of systems that you don't agree with, but you have been acting to continue. There can be a lot of difficulties that come up with this course. So if you have more symptoms or notice yourself kind of obsessing about things or really feeling more anxious or sad, just know it's not just you. It's part of dealing with this kind of heavy material. So evaluation and grading, lovely segue. How will I judge you? So I have my grading scale that I typically don't round, but if it is really on the bubble, one of the things I'll look at is things like how involved were you in the discussions, which is sort of the online equivalent of attendance and participation. Did you take advantage of opportunities to do extra work? But typically I certainly, I don't round a whole lot. So where do the points come from? There's 1,000 points in the class. I just find the math easier when I run classes like that. Almost half of it comes from online discussions. So a lot of it is just engaging with the material and your peers. And some of those are very formal with citations and sources. Some of those are very casual. Some of those also build up into later assignments. You've got 3 kind of big pieces of assignments. One is an autobiography focusing on gender. Another is a character analysis paper, so you're going to focus on the gendered experience of a girl or woman from a book, TV show, movies, something. Movies are nice because they're a little more contained, but I'm certainly open to other sources. I do want it to be a fictional character. And then advocacy plan and project, that's the last thing we do in kind of right at the end of week 6 and week 7. And then you will have quizzes, but they're worth, I think they're worth 30 points each. They're honestly a fairly small piece. Most of the questions for those will come from our textbook. So discussions, you will talk about kind of what the expectation is. And usually the first one, I want to be about 150 to 250 words. Some of them will specify that you need to have citations, a certain number of citations or sources. And then I typically want you to read the other student responses and then post at least 2 responses. So you don't have to respond to everybody, but I want you to respond to at least 2 people. Sometimes for a particular post, I might request more. And responses, I'm typically looking for 50 to 100 words in length. Keep an eye out. I might at some point require that you use sources in your response to a particular discussion question too. Whatever you are discussing. So it's pretty open who you choose to comment on. I may divide you into small groups just so that you don't have to read, 20 other people's responses every week. It depends a little on what our final numbers are, and but it's something I may do just to keep the workload a little more contained. But whoever you choose to respond to, make sure that you keep your tone polite. You can always send an email to me, send a post as an email to me first and say, I'm thinking of posting this. Is this appropriate? Yeah. So assignments, make sure that you're submitting PDFs and docs. I love Google Docs, but I really need it to be in a file that Blackboard can play nice with when you submit things. So autobiography 1 and 2, you're going to submit one early on, and then the second one you're going to add sources to and make it a little more scholarly. So early on, you're just kind of throwing out what are your thoughts on how gender has affected your experience. And the second one, you're going to be more scholarly and reflective and really analyze things. You might change some of what you talk about along the way. That's okay. And your paper, your final one, right now I'm saying at least 5 sources. Again, this is the first time I'm running the course. So if you see a different number when you look at the syllabus or at the course description or at the assignment description, go with whatever's most updated. But my thinking here is 5 sources, and they can all be from the course. So you don't have to go out and find sources. So as you're reading the different sources from the course, sort of mentally keep track or even keep notes about which ones might be good for your paper later. Character analysis paper, this one I want you to use at least one peer-reviewed journal article that you find on your own. And I will try to include some videos that walk through how do you find journal articles. It doesn't have to be empirical, just peer-reviewed. So a journal article, not a book or a book chapter. Not a magazine article, not a blog. And there are a lot of discussion questions that focus on this process of building your character analysis. So even though there is a paper that's due, it's not just, oh, this week write your paper. There's a lot of pieces that build up to it. And then advocacy plan and project, we'll talk about the importance of advocacy, especially in roles as professionals in psychology. And these don't have to be huge projects. It might be a social media campaign, like a series of several posts on an issue. It might be writing a letter to somebody. And I'll talk about someone I know who is a breast surgeon who did advocacy that led to a bill being passed that makes things better for her patients. That you don't have to get a bill passed through, the State House. And for this one, you need citations. When you explain why you chose what you did, what to do, you need to kind of explain why it's important using at least 3 sources, which can be all from this course. And again, there's some discussion questions that go with that too. So assessments, there will be quizzes. They're fairly low key. They'll probably be mostly multiple choice and true false. I might include an essay, an occasional essay, but it would be, these are timed and only taken once, but this is meant to be where if you have read the book carefully and taken a few notes along the way, you should be good. You're free to use any resources you have except other people when you're taking the test or the quizzes. Course schedule. What I do for online classes is a weekly to-do list. It's a format. This class is not as intensive as my writing and psych class, but I still think that this format really helps with tracking everything that needs to be done. If you want a copy of your own, you have to click make a copy and save it somewhere in your Google Drive. You can also print it and check things off as you go, but it takes you through the readings and the videos and the assignments. And I also include reminders for when I want you to go in and follow up on responses. Because in Blackboard, I usually make the due date when I want you to post. And so I give you a few days to respond, but there's no way for me to have Blackboard give you 2 due dates, so I have to do it through here. Each week, there will be a short video where I go over what you're expected to do for that week. If there's anything weird or unusual with any of the readings, I'll let you know there. I'll go through the discussion questions and the assignments for that week. References. So I often require you to use sources. So I have a list of references. They're in alphabetical order by each module. So you can copy and paste these, make sure that you're not getting the formatting messed up. And if you look in the weekly to-do list, you'll also see I have, for each of these, I have the correct in-text citation. For pieces from the Lectures on the Psychology of Women, this is an edited book, which means each chapter is its own source with its own author, and then you cite it as being part of an edited book. So here's one of the references. So you see the author's name, the year, the title of the chapter, and then it says in their editor's book, 5th edition, and then I have the pages for each chapter. So you have to cite and reference each chapter individually. So I've tried to make it, I want you to use a lot of sources. I've tried to make it pretty user-friendly, even for people who aren't familiar with APA style. Academic policies in general, please don't plagiarize, don't reuse papers, don't reuse assignments, don't cheat on the quizzes. If you have any questions about any of those policies, please let me know. I think that's what's important to know about the syllabus. Again, I use a lot of Google Docs because I make mistakes or I want to update things a little bit. I realize this reading isn't really good. I need to use this other reading instead. So the Google Docs let me update things as we go. And then you can also you can always download or make a copy into your Google Doc. If you ever have trouble with Google Docs, just send me an email. I am happy to download everything you need for the course and email it to you because I don't want technology to be a barrier in that way. I don't know if I mentioned it in this video. I mentioned it in the last. There is one required book. I tried to choose one that's not too expensive. I think it's $50 if you buy the paperback new. I recommend renting because it's not terribly long. It's not it's all just text. There's no cool like tables or there's pictures of the authors, but I think it would lend itself well to a digital format. If you have any other concerns or questions, you know where to find me because my email is right here. Thanks. Bye.